Abbiamo finito fondo, cominciamo? Ci siamo? Sì. Let's go. Ok, benvenuti a tutti, grazie. Grazie di essere venuti a questa occasione un po' particolare, francamente, che abbiamo organizzato. Do you have the translation? Date le cuffie di traduzione a Mike e Susan, per favore. Chi ce l'ha, Vanni? Ce l'avete giù? Sì, dai quelle lì, sì. Eccola. Allora, ready? Works? Yeah. Benvenuti a tutti, benvenuti particolarmente a Susan e Mike che ci hanno concesso nel loro viaggio di prendersi un momento di riflessione fra amici. Comincio introducendo il tema, cercando di rispondere a numerose domande che mi sono state poste. La prima è perché il libro, perché le marche, tutta una serie di conseguenze che sembrano illogiche, che a me illogiche non sembrano. E cerco di spiegarvi per quale motivo siamo qua e le cose che ci hanno spinto a farlo. Innanzitutto il rapporto con Mike, perché abbiamo lavorato su alcuni dossier insieme e quando mi sono avveduto che il suo libro non era pubblicato in Italia ho pensato che fosse una cosa intelligente far sapere anche agli italiani come la pensa su alcune circostanze. E devo dire che l'idea ha giovato particolarmente a me perché ho visto le stesse cose che abbiamo letto sui giornali da un'altra prospettiva e ho cambiato idea, come poi cercherò di spiegarvi successivamente. La seconda cosa è che abbiamo qui, e questo è il messaggio, le risorse per fare le cose bene. Quindi quando abbiamo detto pubblichiamo il libro, chi chiamo? Chiamo Liberi Liberi. Perché Liberi Liberi? Perché molti anni or sono un mio grande amico, grande lettore, Amedeo Giorgetti, che è in questa stanza, un po' provocatoriamente mi rifilava i libri di Liberi, pensando che fossero l'opposto del mio pensiero corrente. Viceversa io mi sono appassionato alle letture di questi libri, mi sono piaciuti e ho cominciato a dare una mano, per quanto possibile, a questa casa editrice che merita di essere conosciuta. La stessa cosa mi è capitata avendo letto tanti anni fa un libro fantastico di un autore straordinario che è considerato uno dei geni non solo della letteratura ma anche dell'economia e che sta proprio ad Ancona e che si chiama Geminello Alvi, è qui presente il mio amico Geminello. Non concordiamo sempre su tutto, ma il suo punto di vista è un arricchimento tutte le volte. Tutte le volte capisci una cosa diversa parlando con Geminello. Grazie Geminello per quello che mi dai. Ora, quello che io ricevo da tutte da questi contatti mi hanno indotto ad organizzare questa cosa. Perché? Perché quello che noi siamo sostanzialmente è più o meno, dice una ricerca americana molto significativa, la media delle persone che frequentiamo. Quindi quando vogliamo sapere chi siamo noi, se ci cominciamo a guardare intorno e capiamo quelli che frequentiamo di più, noi siamo più o meno la media di quelle persone lì. Questo implica che necessariamente dobbiamo allargarla questa cerchia, cioè aprirci a nuovi contributi, specialmente quei contributi che sono stravaganti rispetto alla cultura di provenienza. E in questo senso il libro vi darà, almeno a me ha dato, un straordinario punto di vista diverso rispetto a quello che normalmente noi leggiamo sui giornali. Giornali che non escono benissimo, perché tutte le volte danno la parte della notizia che fa vendere i giornali, ma non la parte della notizia che implica il lavoro della politica, dei manager che hanno cambiato le cose nella storia. Mike è sicuramente uno degli uomini che ha cambiato numerosissime cose nella storia. E qui voglio ricordare a me stesso un'epifania che ebbi circa un mese fa. Sapete, l'epifania è quel momento o religioso o laico nel quale la percezione di un fenomeno vi apre e vi richiama a un altro fenomeno, no? Nel caso religioso è con la divinità, nel caso laico è con un ricordo molto forte. Allora, circa 40 giorni fa ho trascinato un gruppo di amici in un'avventura perché volevo vedere da molti anni un complesso straordinario a Göbekli Tepe e l'ho trascinati in questa avventura con la neve al confine fra la Turchia e la Siria. Quando siamo arrivati lì siamo atterrati in una città che secondo me doveva essere fuori dal mondo, in realtà era una città da 1 milione di abitanti. Ci ha ricevuto il ministro della cultura, ci ha aperto il museo, ci ha fatto vedere un sacco di cose. La cosa che però adesso mi ha colpito, ci sono tantissime cose per le quali vi consiglio andate, è un posto veramente straordinario che ha cambiato la concezione evoluzionistica dell'uomo negli ultimi 10-12 mila anni. Ma quello che mi ha colpito è che a un certo punto, girando intorno al problema, cioè andare a vedere il museo, andare a vedere Göbekli Tepe, il ministro ci ha portato a vedere una specie di piscina e a un certo punto ha detto: questa è la piscina di Abramo. E io sono rimasto basito perché al di là di tanti pesci che c'erano dietro, a destra c'era la caverna natale di Abramo e di fronte c'era la chiesa e poi c'era la moschea e poi c'era anche la chiesa ortodossa e poi c'era l'insediamento ebreo, erano tutti lì. E in quel momento io ho pensato a Mike. Perché ho pensato a Mike? Ho pensato a Mike perché Mike è l'uomo che dopo migliaia d'anni è riuscito a mettere insieme le fedi contrapposte e con gli accordi di Abramo, appunto, perché Abramo è riconosciuto da tutti, da tutte le fedi che ho citato, come il patriarca, come l'uomo che ha fatto nascere. Sapete la differenza fra Abramo e Abramo? Abram era il padre eccellente, Abramo viceversa è il padre delle moltitudini. La differenza non è solo lessicale, è molto culturale, è molto profonda. Il risultato qual è? Che mi sono trovato nel posto che giustificava la visione di Mike dell'unità possibile fra questi soggetti, pur nella contrapposizione culturale. Allora, nella contrapposizione culturale nascono le idee e ciascuno di noi sostanzialmente, essendo il frutto delle persone che lo circondano, vi cito a questo proposito un soggetto che c'era arrivato prima. Se qualcuno di voi ha letto José Ortega y Gasset, nelle sue meditazioni su Don Chisciotte nel 1914 butta là una frase che è rimasta storica e che dice: io sono io e le mie circostanze. Perché le circostanze sono quelle cose che incidono sul tuo modo di vedere le cose, no? Mike a un certo punto nel suo libro, di cui non parlo, parlerà molto meglio Mike e Molinari, parla del suo force multiplier. E quando dice force multiplier si dice è un acceleratore della sua forza, ma io so che quando si riferisce a force multiplier si riferisce a Susan, perché è così che la chiama. E allora le persone che ti circondano ti cambiano, le persone che stanno vicino a te ti danno degli input per cui tu cambi il tuo carattere. Un'ultima riflessione, spero non troppo filosofica. Carattere, che è quella cosa che noi attribuiamo a un soggetto in età matura, no? che quindi lo contraddistingue rispetto agli altri, se ci riflettete però c'ha una origine etimologica molto significativa. In greco antico character era non solo il carattere impresso, era anche lo strumento che incideva, si chiamavano nella stessa maniera. E come mai il carattere come incisore, carattere come inciso e carattere come personalità si chiamano nella stessa maniera? Perché il carattere è esattamente le incisioni che noi riceviamo dall'esperienza. In questo senso le incisioni che io ho ricevuto dalla lettura e dal rapporto con Mike sono state straordinarie. Vi prego di accogliere Maurizio Molinari e Mike Pompeo, 70° segretario di Stato americano, su questo palco con un applauso. Grazie.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning. It's a great pleasure and honor to have here with us Secretary Mike Pompeo, the main character for American public life, the main character of the Western Alliance, and as this book is telling us, also a narrator of our common values. So thank you so much,
Thank you,
Secretary,
Maurizio.
for being
Thank you.
with us. And by the way, this is the book translated in Italian, as was just said, by Libri, with the Italian title Mai un passo indietro in lotta per l'America che amo, and I suggest you to buy the book, of course. So, Secretary, you just came from Middle East. The main topic is Iran in these hours. We are waiting today for the start of the negotiation in Oman between the US delegation and the Iranian one. How do you see the situation in this country, especially after the repression that happened at the beginning of January?
You bet. But before I answer that, just a few thoughts. Paolo, first of all, thank you. Thank you for publishing this in Italian. For those of you who don't know, my family is, on my father's side, is from Precentro. Yeah. And my father passed away a few years ago, and he would be incredibly proud that I am here today. He would be happy that we honor in the Pompeo family our Italian heritage. We have a brand new grandson named Giacomo. We are Noni and Nono to Giacomo, but he would be saddened that I'm speaking to you in English. And that I'm the first generation of our family that did not speak Italian. So I have one of the things I hope to do before I perish and the Lord takes me, to figure out how to learn enough Italian that I can come be with you all and speak to you in the language of my home country and your home country as well. Mayor Silvestri, thank you so much for being here. We love that special place. My wife loves the candy in Sulmona as well. It is a very special place, as is this country in my heart. Thank you to the publishers, Libri, for putting this all together. I know it was a lot of work. I'm sure you had to correct my English in addition to figuring out how to say it in Italian. So thank you for doing that. It's a blessing for the Pompeo family, and I hope for the people who will read it in the language in which you have transcribed it. Two more thoughts before we turn to the news of the day. One of the reasons I love this place so much and care about it so deeply isn't just about the Pompeo family or my heritage or my life. It is because this is a place with a deep history and in centrality to Western civilization, something that I am very worried about. We all have this duty, each and every one of you here today, to do everything we can to preserve and protect the civilization that has benefited Italy, the United States, and frankly, the least amongst us all across the world for so long. The post-World War II order is changing. There's no doubt about that. The world is moving. It is moving quickly. But the foundational ideas of human dignity and basic property rights and decency and national sovereignty, those things matter. We take them for granted today, but you all here in Italy know especially that has not always been the case, right? You have the history of Venice, you have the history of this place and of Europe, and these are central to the chance for Giacomo, my grandson, to live in a world that is peaceful and prosperous. And so this place that we are, this special place here in Ancona today and in Italy, has to be at the center of preserving and protecting that idea of Western civilization. Final thought. Alongside that civilization is something that Paolo mentioned. You cannot contemplate moving forward in this way without a deep understanding of faith and of religious tolerance. If the world walks away from that, if it becomes barbarism and secularism apart from faith, then the other task, the task to protect these basic virtues of Western civilization that's been written about here in Italy and in Greece and all across Europe and by thinkers in the United States and around the world, without this idea of faith leaders understanding that there is an importance to these ideas, and that we all protect and preserve that, and we teach our children about our faith, whether we are Christians, Catholics, Jews, Muslims. Losing that will cause Western civilization to fade. And this will lead to a place a world that looks radically different than the one that I know everyone, regardless of their political persuasion, that I know everyone in this room cares so deeply about. And so I wrote my book to talk about the tactics and the operations and the moment that I served as Secretary of State and CIA Director but I was hopeful too that I would leave some ideas that would help us bring forward this idea of faith and civilization to the next generation of leaders around the world. So thank you all for being here today on this, what turned out to be a beautiful day here. I look forward to our conversation. And I'll turn now to the moment. You have a massive American armada all around you. And you have a regime in Iran that wants to undermine just what I was talking about. They want the people of Iran to continue to live under terror. They want the women who live in Iran to live a life that is indecent, and they have imposed that on the people of Iran since 1979. And they are at their weakest moment today, thanks to many things that came together, including the work that was done in the first administration by President Trump, bringing together many Gulf nations, Arab nations, Muslim nations, along with Israel and Christian nations, to form what became the idea that resulted in the Abraham Accords. That had fallen away in these last years, and the regime was feeling its oats. They no longer are, and I'm very hopeful that President Trump will do the necessary to give the Iranian people the chance to do what it is they were hoping to do before the regime showed its true colors, slaughtering some 30 to 50,000 of its own citizens in the course of less than 48 hours. So I'll stop there.
Thank you. And if the Iranian people will succeed, what will be the impact in the community of nations?
It would be a blessing to all of us. So inside of Iran, it would of course be great. 80 million plus people, various religions, many ethnicities, not just Persian. So for the Iranian people, it would be a chance once again to raise their children in a decent and fundamental way. So a critically good thing. Second, for decades, the global world, especially global elites on the left, would say that the central problem in the Middle East was the Palestinian conflict. I know of no senior Middle Eastern leader today that actually believes that. They may pay lip service to it. They may think it's a problem, as do I. We need to treat the people of Gaza and Judea and Samaria with decency and love. But the central problem is in Tehran. And so the elimination of this regime, or a fundamental change in the regime, would free the Gulf Arab states to lead their countries to modernity in the way that I am convinced nearly all of them want to lead them, whether it's General Ayoun, President Ayoun in Lebanon, whether it's Mohammed bin Salman in Saudi Arabia, whether it's Mohammed bin Zayed, a very wise man in the Emirates. They're trying to bring their nations to what I was just talking about, towards an idea of decency and civilization and modernity, and the freeing the Iranian people to play their part in that in the Middle East would help them achieve that, more prosperity, more peace in the region. And for America, it's deeply in our interest. People always talk about President Trump as being an isolationist. Don't mistake America first for isolationism. I think the first 12 months of this administration confirm what you saw in the first 4 years of his first term, which is this is not an isolationist president. America first means delivering on outcomes that matter to America. And a regime in Iran that did not wake up every morning saying that Israel is the little Satan and death to America, the great Satan, is our second objective, would make Americans a heck of a lot more safe as well.
As your book is reminding us, you were one of the main architects of the Abrams Accord. Why Saudi Arabia is not joining yet?
That's a good question. And yes, there were many architects, many hands for the Abraham Accords, including Mohammed bin Salman, Prime Minister Netanyahu, Mohammed bin Zayed, President Trump, our Ambassador David Friedman in Israel, our Ambassador John Rakolta in the Emirates, Jared Kushner, Stephen Mnuchin, many of us working on it. So it wasn't mine. I think the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has a number of things that they need to get through before they can actually step across. First, it was not possible for them to do after President Trump left office. Because without an America that is leading and is prepared to support them on important days, when it's tough for them, think of the day that there was the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. We condemned the murder and supported the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The Biden administration would have done just exactly the opposite. So there was no way they could do it. Second, you should remember Mohammed bin Salman remains the crown prince today. We mistake. He's still leading the country. He is the person making decisions there. But his father remains alive, and there's lots of history attached to that. And then finally, I do think it's the case that so long as the Iranian regime is in place and is telling the people of Saudi Arabia that to recognize Israel's right to exist is somehow a break with Islam, makes it much more difficult for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And so I think when those three conditions move to the place where I hope they get, and then finally there is a path forward for the people in the Palestinian lands in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria, I think the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will join. And if you ask me, will that happen? I am certain that it will. If you ask me when, I do not know.
Speaking about Gaza, after 2 years of terrible and brutal war, now we are entering phase 2 of the Trump plan. And we have been seeing that the beginning of the Board of Peace that President Trump inaugurated. What do you make of this Board of Peace? What is the aim? What will be the impact? What's the meaning of this new body?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think to get to that, one more thought, and this matters to Italy. When we think of the Abraham Accords and peace, we often just think about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The next nation to sign the Abraham Accords is likely to be Indonesia, Pakistan, perhaps. Right? We should not forget that the large Muslim populations reside not only in the Gulf but in Southeast Asia. Indeed, the biggest Muslim populations in the world are in Asia, not in Arabia, not in the Middle East. And that second, we have huge Muslim populations in Africa as well. And this impacts you and your domestic politics and your security here in Italy every day. And so when you think about that against the backdrop of what's taking place today in Gaza and the President's Board of Peace, he's trying to deliver a solution for all of those things, right? To find a model where nations that have Islamic rulers aren't extremist, right? This is the task. We brook no, right? The United Arab Emirates is an amazing place. I just came from there. I traveled here yesterday from Dubai. I'd been in Abu Dhabi and in Israel before that this past week. This is not about eliminating Islam. This is about creating an Islam that is not threatening terror and trying to kill people all across Italy and the United States of America, including me. They're still trying to kill me. They have $1 million bounty on my head. My wife thinks that's a little low. We're trying to create the Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, in whatever variant it finds itself. We have to build out nation states and sovereign enterprises governed by Muslim leaders that aren't extremist. And that's the model. That's what I think President Trump is trying to deliver with the Board of Peace. It's not going to be easy. It'll be very complicated. Hamas is not going to go quietly into the night because we asked them to. They will continue to do what resistance movements do, which is resist. And so whether it's Hezbollah to Israel's north, or the knuckleheads in Yemen, or the Iranian-backed militias in Iraq, they're going to continue to do their work, and that means that we in the West have the task of continuing to stamp out that extremism. And the elimination of this regime in Iran would be a massive step towards achieving that. The largest state sponsor terror, most of the money for those Islamic terror regimes and the Muslim Brotherhood in the Middle East has come from Tehran. And frankly, from Tehran and its sponsors, Russia and China, its buddies, its partners, call them what you will. That elimination of that regime would push back the Russians and the Chinese from the region, and that's mostly fantastic news for the people in the Middle East and for America.
So basically what you're suggesting us is that the rebuilding of Gaza may be a turning point of the relation between the West and Islam.
I think it's an essential part of it. I think the rebuilding of it, I think taking down the leadership in Judea and Samaria, right? It's governed by this guy, Abu Mazen, right? I've met him so many times. He puts himself out as a democracy-loving man, and he's in the 20th year of his 4-year term, and he's a terrorist. We should acknowledge that he is still paying terrorists to kill people in Israel. By the way, not just Jews, killing Arabs, killing Christians. If you kill someone, if you're a terrorist and you kill someone in Israel, the leadership today in Judea and Samaria will pay you. That's indecent, and we can't allow that to continue to exist. And you can't get peace in the region until those leaders understand that they need to become part of the group of normal nations. And I pray that the work in Gaza, the work that the leadership in Lebanon is trying to do, I hope this new leader in Syria will head down that same path. He spent his life in Al-Qaeda, in Harth Hasham, right? He's been a terrorist most of his life. But, we all hope for change. We hope for better.
In your trip in the Middle East, you were also in the Emirates. That is the place where Russia and Ukraine are meeting in this first time negotiation. What is still missing to the final agreement to end this terrible war?
Oh, there's only one thing missing.
That is?
Yeah, Vladimir Putin wants to end it. Everybody else is in agreement, right? Europeans have done fantastic work. I applaud them in a very complicated situation for providing support to Ukraine to help them resist from Russian aggression. Tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. The United States has provided an equal amount of resources for them. Zelensky has clearly said he's prepared to accept that the real estate owned today by the Russians, they can continue to maintain, even though it was taken wrongly, even though it was taken by aggression. While I have not seen the outlines of the deal, it sounds to me like he has agreed that he would do that in exchange for a significant guarantee that Putin can't do this again. And so the only thing missing is Vladimir Putin deciding that the cost of continuing to slaughter Ukrainian kids every night isn't worth the candle. He still thinks it is. And so I hope these negotiations go well, but I've seen no evidence that Vladimir Putin is prepared to lay down his weapons and create peace, even on terms that from my perspective would be unjust and indecent. They may be the best we can get, and for the moment the right answer, but to allow Vladimir Putin to have slaughtered tens of thousands of Iranians and to have stolen tens of thousands of Ukrainian children and taken them back into Russia is a pretty hard pill to swallow. I do hope for peace. I hope they can get there. I've seen no evidence Vladimir Putin's prepared to do that.
Secretary, probably you are among the very few people that know the best about Putin's mind. Why do you believe that he wants so much this war? What he's trying to pursue? What is his vision? What he's trying to do?
Yeah. I did spend a little bit of time with him, so not as much as some others, I suppose. He believes that this is his land. As a historic matter, he believes this. It's not made up. It's not propaganda. He believes deeply that the dissolution of the Soviet Union was the greatest tragedy of the 20th century. He said as much, and he believes it. I think it's in his DNA. I write about this in my book. He says, Mike, you're from Kansas. It's a state in the heartland of America. Why do you think Kansas is part of America? And he's asking the question rhetorically because in the same way he believes Estonia, Lithuania, the Baltic nations, Finland, Norway, not just Ukraine, Moldova, he believes these are rightfully Russian. And his intention is to get them all back. He can't pull it off. They are a middle power at best at this point, a middle power with 1,000+ nuclear warheads, but a middle power from an economic perspective. They have an economy the size of Italy's, right? Roughly the same, roughly parity. They are middle economic power, not small. So he can't get what he wants. But if you ask why he's pursuing this war, it's because he believes he's retaking land justly.
So what's the best approach to this?
You have to inflict pain. I mean, I as someone who grew up as a soldier in a time when Ronald Reagan was our commander-in-chief, the only way to deter an adversary is to demonstrate to them that the costs of conflict or the cost of what it is they seek to achieve unjustly exceeds the benefit. And today he doesn't believe that because President Biden said, well, maybe a minor incursion would be okay. And he allowed the Russian-backed Taliban to kill Americans in Afghanistan, and we fled in a horrible way. Vladimir Putin saw those as weakness, and when Vladimir Putin sees weakness, it's go time for him. That's the time to be aggressive. And so you say, well, how do you stop him? The answer is you have to convince him that there's real costs. And the Biden administration refused to provide air cover for the Ukrainians, right? We could have flown American aircraft, European aircraft, and not allowed the Russians to bring drones in willy-nilly and kill old women in towers in Ukraine, as they did just last night. As we sit here in this warm, beautiful place, there's no heat throughout most of Ukraine. We only see Kyiv because that's where the news folks are, but go to Kharkiv, go to Odessa, go to the outlying places. Tonight there's no power. That's because of Vladimir Putin. And so you have to go inflict real costs. So we should have flown air cover, and we should have provided deep strike capabilities against not civilians. We don't kill Russian women. We don't kill Russian children. That's not how Western civilization behaves. But you go take out military economic targets deep inside of his country and take down his war machine, and then you stop the silliness of pretending to sanction him, right? The Europeans are just as guilty as the Americans, probably more on this count. How do you fight a war against someone and claim you want them to stop fighting and still underwrite it by buying their natural gas? It's tragic. It's never happened in history before. And so you have to go do those things. And we're getting closer, I think, to that. President Trump's decision to convince the Indians to stop buying crude oil from Vladimir Putin's a good thing. I think we'll start to see that.
As you describe in your book, the main global rival of the U.S. is China. So what are the consequences for Europe? What are the decisions that are looming for the European Union in this frame?
Yeah. Maurizio, I actually don't think of China as the chief U.S. rival. That's true, but it doesn't describe the situation. The Chinese Communist Party under Xi Jinping is your greatest rival because you care about your children, and you care about your way of life, and you care about basic property rights and human dignity. I never forget that the first large outbreak of COVID took place here in this country. Right? It was the first mass casualty attack from the Chinese Communist Party. And when I say that, that's a little bit rhetorical and a little bit inflammatory, because it wasn't intentional that the virus escaped from a laboratory in Wuhan. That was not intentional. But everything after that moment, after the escape of that virus, was intentional. He intentionally took people from China to northern Italy and killed Italians. We should just think, when we think about the threat, I say that this gets directly to your question. An important fact around that, Xi Jinping doesn't care one lick. He didn't lose a bit of sleep that your grandmother, your cousin, your friend was killed here in Italy as a result of a virus that came from their country. And we should keep that in mind as we think about how to deal with the Chinese Communist Party under Xi Jinping. And so what should Europe do? It shouldn't do what Prime Minister Carney did this week and say, well, if America's unreliable, I think I'll cozy up to this mass murderer. And Western businesses should be very careful about the things that they do inside of China. We should never allow anyone, whether it's Europe or the United States, and we're doing this as well, sell them a single component that could kill one of our kids. I do not want a Chinese drone to kill an Italian soldier someday that contains American software or American hardware. And so we have to deliver an economic model that convinces Xi Jinping that what he's trying to do can't be accomplished, and to deter him as well. So again, this comes back to deterrence. I do not want war with China. There's no need to have a war with China. But Xi Jinping is prepared to do many things that I think for a long time we didn't think he was prepared to do. And frankly, his predecessors weren't. But so long as he is there and believes that the West is decadent and the West is weak, rightly or wrongly, but if he believes that and continues to foist that model on us, and we do nothing in response to that, we say, we think we'll do some mortgage lending in China, or we'll buy BYD electric vehicles to save our planet. We will continue to underwrite the greatest risk to Western civilization, which is in fact Xi Jinping.
Speaking about dictators, you met with the North Korean leader. Please. Speaking about dictators, you met personally with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. What can you tell us about him that we don't know?
Oh, goodness, yes. It was really something for a guy who in 2010 was a manufacturing guy. I was running a machine shop in Wichita, Kansas. And then just 8 years later, I'm in Pyongyang meeting with a guy who's killed hundreds of thousands of his own people. What to say? I write about this in the book a bit. He's very bright. He was not, he went to school in Switzerland, so he speaks German, but we don't think English. He has a great sense of humor. He can be funny. We had some laughs, which is odd. By the way, Xi Jinping, I've never seen him laugh. But Chairman Kim has a sense of humor. And then the last thing to say about him is he understands his place very well. He was deeply aware of his own nuclear program. We weren't sure he really knew that his generals had actually told him. But there were a few things that I said about things that we knew, the United States intelligence services knew, that we didn't think he would know we knew, and he was deeply aware of them himself. These were very clandestine, very deep programs, and he was well versed in them, well schooled in them. And he understands his place because he needs that knowledge to deliver against his core problem set. And his core problem set is today he is completely controlled by China. And so we failed. This was one of my great failures. We did not get the nuclear weapons out of North Korea. We made scant more progress. We made a little progress. We made very little more progress than previous administrations had with respect to the North Korean nuclear program, or more broadly even, their program of weapons of mass destruction, including their biological program. What we underappreciated was how much control Xi Jinping had on him. If you go back and look at the record, President Trump met with Xi Jinping, or with Chairman Kim 3 times. First in Singapore, then in Hanoi, and then at the border in Panmunjom. Each time, Chairman Kim went to Beijing both before the meeting and after the meeting, and that was telling. He was taking orders from Beijing, so he has a little bit of freedom, a little bit of agency, but not very much.
So, are you suggesting that also the defense agreement that he signed with Putin, that Kim signed with Putin, and that he's sending his soldiers to Ukraine, is a decision shared
100%.
with China?
Mauricio, that's perfectly said. There are some 15 to 17,000 North Koreans fighting in Europe today. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say during my lifetime. That is not because Chairman Kim thought that'd be a cool idea. That is because Xi Jinping said, I'm going to go do that to help my Russian friend Vladimir Putin. And he didn't want to send his own people. He didn't want to send Chinese citizens to go there, which he has sent a few. But he didn't want to send large-scale troops to be slaughtered in Europe. He sent North Koreans. So yes, they are perfectly in sync. And indeed, whether he ordered Chairman Kim, whether he ordered Chairman Kim to do it or not, I don't know. He certainly made clear that was his expectation.
A couple of weeks ago, the fate of Greenland risked to make NATO to implode. How do you see the relations between the EU and the US in this moment?
Yeah. I don't get the Greenland thing, I'll just be honest with you. I'm sure many of you don't understand it either. I do understand President Trump's deep desire to have European nations do their part to defend Western civilization through whether it's a more autonomous set of European forces or through NATO, or, in my view, both would be fantastic. President Trump has a deeply held American view, not just a Republican view, but a deeply held American view that Europe has for decades underinvested in its own security in ways that put it at risk and put the United States at risk as well. And there's no need to be cute about that. I think that's true. And I think, frankly, most Europeans understand that that's true as well. I think the Greenland story was a part of that. I think he was saying, hey, let's get up there and go do the hard work that's necessary in the Arctic. I'll never forget I went to, it was 2000 and I think it was the end of 18 to the beginning of 19. As a Secretary of State, I traveled to Rovaniemi, Finland, at the Arctic Circle for what's called the Arctic Council. Two things when I learned of the Arctic Council, I wasn't following it deeply as a machine shop owner in Wichita. Two things were interesting. One, China was considered a near Arctic nation, so attended the Arctic Conference. I think that's very telling. You should note, pull a map out, China's no nearer the Arctic than Argentina. That's not quite mathematically true, but close. And second, the previous 3 Arctic conferences had talked not 1 second about security and 100% of the time about climate change. And so I went to Rovaniemi and upset the apple cart. I was perfectly happy to talk about climate half of the time, maybe, or a quarter of the time, but I went there and spoke about security and was literally booed off stage. And I think President Trump's trying to flip that script, say, no, this is an important, if you know the trajectory of how ballistic missiles fly, this is a very important space. We know that the passage is going to open up. There'll be more military activity. Let's get this right. I think he was trying to get there. He did it in a way that I think caused grief that was unnecessary to get what should be deeply in America's interest. And so I share his objective, but not the modus vivendi, the way that he went about it. That's a wind-up to EU-U.S. relations have been contentious for decades. They will continue to be contentious in the decades ahead. We are enormous economic competitors, which is a great thing. We are also nations that share deep set of values and interests, which is an even more important thing. And I don't think any president wants to break that or could break it. I think the ties are too deep and too strong. I saw that. I was at the NATO meeting where President Trump was accused by the European press of trying to withdraw and pull out of NATO. I never thought there was any chance we would do it, and it turns out in that one I was right. There's no chance the United States is going to depart from NATO. What I fear more than that, far more, and this gets to the core of the EU-U.S. relationship, is that NATO will become irrelevant, that it won't do the necessary, that we won't invest in it. And it's not just about more soldiers. It's about thinking. It's about how we think about the world. The greatest threat to NATO is not Vladimir Putin. The greatest threat to NATO is Xi Jinping. Right? This is a global conflict, and NATO has to move past its original purpose, which was to confront the then Soviet Union, and think about NATO's role broadly in the West and its place in the West and its anchoring of the West. So it's not just about troops. It's about how are we going to deal with complex space issues. It's about how are we going to deal with huge efforts of the Chinese Communist Party and the Russians here in Italy, right, to infiltrate and take over our political systems. Russia's no more going to take over Estonia by force than a man in the moon. They might get control of Estonia by winning an election. And they might do the same here in a place like Italy. And the Chinese Communist Party is no more going to invade Los Angeles or New York or Denver, right? But they're speaking directly to American kids today. The Chinese Communist Party speaks directly to our children and grandchildren and tells them a singular message is that Western civilization is gone and it's decadent and it's in decay. And the model that we have, an atheist, Marxist, at best Leninist, communist system that doesn't care about human life or property rights, that's the model that we all ought to live in. It's what they're telling our kids and grandkids. And you don't even know because you're not on TikTok. This is the risk that we all face. And the EU-U.S. relationship by the way, the EU-U.S. relationship, and then I would hook on to that, the Australians, the South Koreans, the Japanese, all of and the Gulf Arab states, that 75% of global GDP between them, maybe it's 72, but greater than 2/3 of global GDP needs to go be the good guys and the white hats and be fearless. And remember that Xi Jinping has a different view, and his buddy is now basically his tool, Vladimir Putin, want to destroy that. And so the United States and EU, we can We can fight over grain quotas and cars. This is straight up fair. That's economic competition. I hope we'll get rid of all the tariffs. This would be my view. You guys, you here in Europe, stop non-tariff barriers. We'll put our tariffs at zero, and let's go compete our rear ends off. If we do that and do that well, then I'm convinced that we'll prevail. And if we don't, then there's risk, and that risk will be to all of us. It won't be to just the United States or just to Europe. It will be to all of us who believe in the central thesis of Western civilization.
Just a follow-up on this. So you're telling us that the hybrid war that Russia and China are waging against us is the biggest threat for the Western countries?
Yeah, I think that's true. We need to build our militaries. We need to have capable power projection. We need all of that. We need to do, by the way, amazing European defense technology that I have seen. Some of it Ukrainian, but even more broadly, really remarkable technology. I would urge your leaders, business leaders, to invest in that. So we've got to be capable to push back against these, call it kinetic threats. But far and away, the biggest threat to us is that we lose confidence in ourselves. That we come to think, we're just no different than them. That we're just, this is the risk. And by the way, I could speak directly about the United States. We have for a couple of decades now forgotten to teach our kids how damn lucky they are to be American, and how damn lucky they are to have a U.S. Constitution, and how fortunate they are to live in this incredibly unique space that is a global leader in so many fronts. And if we stop doing that, if we stop teaching our kids that, then Xi Jinping will prevail. Because someday he'll infiltrate one party in our country, or maybe both of them, right? Vladimir Putin has infiltrated both of them. We have Tucker Carlson speaking his talking points. We have the same on the left, right? Bernie Sanders' famous picture with his little, Soviet hat on. You have this is not new, but is at scale in ways, and the risk is far greater today than it was before. And so the way that we prevail, and I'm convinced we will, by the way, I'm convinced we'll prevail, but the way we prevail is to continue to have confidence that our model actually leads to peace, that the Western model actually leads to prosperity and delivers against extremism, right? I'll give you another good example that we just all take for granted. When there's conflict in the world today, does anybody call China to help solve it? Does anybody ask for the Chinese equivalent of the U.S. 82nd Airborne to come save them when their nation is at risk? No, they call us, right? They call you, they call NATO, right? They call us because they know that we won't come solve the problem and then demand conquest, right? Like, we'll go try to solve the problem and get the hell out of there, right? And go back to living our lives and help them live their lives with the religious freedom that they deserve and the basic human dignity that they deserve. And so we have to. The world's counting on all of us. Italians, French, come on, France. We're counting on all of Europe. By the way, everyone. Poles, they get it, right? The Lithuanians, they get it. They're counting on all of us to deliver against this challenge of this next century. And we have to do it. We will.
What happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with the killing of 2 American citizens, and especially after what happened with Alex Pretty, had a big impact also in this country. What did you make of these episodes?
Oh, goodness. What do I make of the episode? Every country has to find a way to conduct law enforcement activity without putting innocent civilians at risk. And I've seen the videos, but that's all I know about what actually happened there. It looks to me like this was not appropriate, but we should have an investigation to figure out if the law enforcement officials there behaved appropriately. And if not, those, whoever they were, Border Patrol officers or ICE officers or local county officials, they should be prosecuted for having committed a crime. It is indecent. Law enforcement doesn't wantonly, intentionally kill civilians. They arrest them if they think they're violating the law. It's a fundamental idea of Western civilization that I was speaking to, right? Due process and the like. Second, the radical left picks these stories up across the world. If I watched BBC or CNN, like you all do, English language stations, when I travel the world, that's what I watch. If I watched them every day, I'd hate America too. Right? The radical left will pick up this storyline and tell it in a way that's makes no sense. You have to remember that this incident happened against a backdrop of the United States having made an intentional decision to allow some 12 to 15 million people to come into our country and violate our laws and our sovereignty. That's how many illegal aliens came into our nation during the 4 years of President Biden's administration. In my view, no country should permit that to happen. We each have a responsibility to secure our own sovereignty and our own borders and to decide who gets to come be a citizen of our country. It is not for someone outside of our country to say, yeah, it looks pretty good, I think I'll come in. And I know this is deeply controversial here in Italy. I've watched the illegal migration into your country as well. I hope that you all will take seriously the idea that you should protect your own. I don't tell any country how to run theirs, but it is very dangerous to have others decide who gets to be inside of your country. Your nation should make those decisions for yourself. And your decision may be, we want to invite everyone. That's a sovereign Italian decision to make. But you haven't. You never have. America never has either. No nation does. By the way, an American trying to get into Mexico to become a Mexican citizen, good luck, right? It's not going to happen. And somehow somehow it's okay for people to transit into our country unlawfully. That seems indecent. One story from my time in Congress. I had a constituent call who lived in South Central Kansas, and he had family who was living in Norway, and that person wanted to become an American citizen. They were 7 years into the process trying to become American. I don't know if it was a good idea for that person to become American or not. I don't know the story. But we were in our office thinking, the truth is they should just go swim the Rio Grande River. Right? When you have that mistake about not understanding that you as a nation state, you have a responsibility to decide who becomes a citizen of your country, then you lose your Italianness or you lose your Americanness. And those are different things, and that's great. Or you lose your Saudiness, right? If you're in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or your Indonesianness. Every nation has to make that. And this incident in Minneapolis took place against the backdrop of a president who's trying to restore that idea. And I applaud him for trying to restore it, and I do not sanction or approve of doing it in a way that results in the death of Americans who are innocent.
And the last question, Secretary, is about the title of your book, that in the original English one is Never Give an Inch. I understand it is a quote by an important American general during the Civil War. Why did you choose this quote?
Oh, goodness. Yes, so I chose the title Never Give an Inch. It was actually my son's idea, Nicholas. But we chose it because it gets to something that I tried to teach him. And it's not about the hyperbole, right? I was trying to sell books a little bit. Because as a negotiator, as a diplomat, I compromised all the time. Right? There are so many things one compromises on, and rightly so. That seems fair and decent and the right thing. But on the things that really matter, right? One's belief, one's faith set, right? I believe, as a Christian, I believe in Jesus Christ. You don't give an inch on those. On your values as an American, you don't compromise on those. And because the moment you do, the moment you start to back up on those things, it's not that you can't negotiate, right? On so many things, right? The Ukrainians are negotiating. That's appropriate. But on the things that really matter, once you start to back up, evil will roam the earth in ways that is indecent, and you can't permit that. And I know we're wrapping up, and everyone needs to get on their way today. But I would leave you with this. My wife sometimes comes. Susan's here with me today. You can see by her red hair, not that much Italian in her bloodline. But she loves this place too. And she loves it because she, like me, believes that in spite of the fact that she'll walk out sometimes and say, Mike, that was very depressing. You talked about all these problems in the world and all these challenges. She and I both believe deeply that the good guys are going to win this. And we are celebrating this year 250 years of America, much to the chagrin of the Brits. I'm confident America is going to get 250 more great years as well, and that Europe will get another couple thousand great years. that's important for us all to recognize that in spite of me having seen such trouble and such evil, I believe deeply in the centrality of our nations to the world and to the least amongst us, whether they find themselves in Asia or Africa or Arabia. You should know why I believe that. Maybe that's the most important thing for me to leave you with today. I don't believe it because the United States is going to elect great presidents. We'll elect some good ones and we'll elect some not so good ones, and you and I will disagree about which are which. And I don't believe it's because you're going to elect great prime ministers or we're going to elect good congressmen. It'll be a mixed bag. I believe it because at the end of the day, people understand how important it is to them and to their sisters and brothers and to their children, to their nieces and nephews and grandchildren, believe it is absolutely important that they participate in this idea of Western civilization. What does that mean? It means they get up and they go to work. It means they get up and go to their mosque or their church, right? These ideas are central to continued growing of the things that really keep us all safe and secure and give us opportunity. I think you all know that, and I think you're prepared to do that, and I think you're prepared to sacrifice. I'm confident that Americans are, I know that most well, are prepared to sacrifice to continue that. And so when I go back to the United States and visit with people who go to their kids' school and help their children learn more, or go to my church and we take dinner to elderly people who can't get out of their house, those are the things that deliver and prove once and for all that our ideas are right and decent, and that the good things and the good people should rule and govern and lead and allow us to live our lives. And I think we're going to do that. I'm very confident of that. You should be long on Europe. You should be long on America. And you should know that I and my wife Susan are. And we thank you all so much for giving me the chance to be here. And the fact that you all can now read my utterings in your language is so lovely for Susan and me. Thank you all so very, very much.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you so much. And thank you to you, wife.
Ancora qualche minuto d'attenzione. La posizione di Mike è chiarissima, no? È chiarissima sui principi, però ha la sua flessibilità e la sua intelligenza. Quando leggerete il libro troverete che a pagina 541, questo lo cito a memoria, lui cita uno dei più grandi autori, Keynes, che dice: gli stupidi non cambiano opinione quando i fatti sono diversi, no? E lo dice 3 volte nel suo libro, lo dice a pagina 353 e a pagina 507, così dimostro che l'ho letto approfonditamente. Ma significa però non mollare sui principi ed essere pragmatici sui fatti. Questa è una lezione che traggo dalla lettura e dall'insegnamento di Mike. Quindi vi ringrazio ancora. Ho 2 cose da fare, tutte e 2 molto importanti, sulle quali vi prego di condividere con me questo momento. L'ultima risposta che non vi ho dato prima è perché ogni tanto mi avventuri a fare queste cose che vi assicuro sono molto complicate e creano un sacco di problemi. La risposta è, da un lato, per quegli spiriti animali a cui Keynes faceva riferimento, e che non sono gli spiriti animaleschi, sono gli spiriti dell'anima, no? E quindi non gli viene naturale. Il secondo, però, profondo, è perché ho avuto un grande maestro anche su questa materia, e questo grande maestro è stato Francesco Merloni, che mi ha sempre insegnato di ricordarmi i luoghi nati anche quando ero in giro per il mondo, e di tornare qui e dare una mano alla crescita sociale di questi luoghi. Quindi ogni tanto mi lancio in queste cose per stimolare un ambiente che altrimenti qualche volta mi sembra un po' addormentato. Ultima cosa, sorpresa delle sorprese, chiamo sotto il palco il sindaco di Pacentro e Mike, perché abbiamo una cerimonia in onore. Come? Sindaco Mike, prego, sotto il palco. Yeah. Grazie Maurizio. Ci vediamo. Vieni a fare un secondo?
Sì, sì, assolutamente.
Allora,